You did it. Whatever it was, you worked for it. You fought for it. You prayed for it. And it happened. And then the celebration faded. The people went home. The noise stopped. And you sat in the quiet and felt nothing, or worse than nothing. Maybe you felt like you couldn't go on, like everything you had given to get to that moment had hollowed you out completely, and now there was nothing left inside to keep going with. Maybe, and I want you to stay here with me, maybe some part of you in the quietest, most private corner of your mind just wanted it to stop. All of it. The pressure, the performance, the showing up, the being needed. All of it. There is a prophet in the Bible who felt exactly that way. Not before his greatest moment. Not during his darkest trial. After his miracle. In the silence that followed his victory. His name was Elijah. And what happened to him and what God did next is one of the most quietly revolutionary things in all of Scripture. We have a word for what Elijah experienced, though it didn't exist in his time. Burnout. But burnout is widely misunderstood. Most people think it means being tired, needing a holiday, a few days off and you'll be fine. Real burnout goes deeper than tired. It is a complete depletion. Emotional, physical, spiritual. It is what happens when you have given everything you have consistently for so long that there is genuinely nothing left in the reserve. You are running on empty and the engine is starting to knock. And here is the coolest part of burnout that nobody talks about enough. It doesn't always come in the middle of the hard season. It often comes right after, when the pressure finally lifts, when the thing you were holding together is finally done, when you finally have permission to rest, because your body and your mind were holding on, white knuckling through, and the moment the crisis passed, they let go all at once, and you crash. Psychologists call this post-achievement depression. The strange, disorienting emptiness that follows the accomplishment of something you worked incredibly hard for. The goal kept you going, and now the goal is gone, and you don't know who you are or what you are for without it. High achievers know this feeling intimately. People of faith sometimes know it as spiritual dryness, the inexplicable absence of the presence you feel so powerfully before, the silence after the fire. If you have ever crossed a finish line and felt nothing, if you have ever achieved something and immediately felt more lost than before, if you have ever been so depleted that the thought of continuing felt genuinely impossible, this story is for you. 1 Kings chapter 18 and 19. To understand Elijah's collapse, you have to understand what just happened before it. Elijah has just come off one of the most dramatic moments in all of the biblical history, Mount Carmel. A public confrontation between Elijah alone, one man, and 450 prophets of Baal. He called down fire from heaven in front of everyone, and it came. This is not a quiet miracle. This is the kind of moment that shakes the earth, The kind of moments people build their entire faith around. The kind of moment you imagine would fill a person with unshakable confidence, overwhelming joy, deep settled peace. And then Queen Jezebel sends him a message. She is furious. She wants him dead. She gives him 24 hours. One message after everything, after the fire, after the miracle, after the victory, one threatening message undoes him completely. And Elijah runs. He runs into the wilderness. He travels a day's journey on foot. And then he stops. He sits down under a juniper tree and he says to God, and I want you to hear these words carefully. It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. A prophet of God, a man who just witnessed a miracle he was part of, sitting under a tree in the wilderness, asking God to let him die. Not as a dramatic gesture, not as a manipulation, as an honest, exhausted, I have nothing left prayer from a man who has completely run out. And then he lies down and sleeps. Now, here is where the most sermons will pivot to encouragement, where the preacher would say, but God, and the music would swell and we'd move quickly past the pain into the promise. But I want you to slow down here, because what God actually does next is so tender, so specific, so unlike what religion has told us to expect, that it changes everything about how we understand what it means to be cared for. God does not send a sermon. God does not send a rebuke. God does not say, get up, stop being dramatic, you just saw a miracle. What is wrong with you? No. An angel touches him and says, arise and eat. That's it. Get up, there is food. Elijah looks and there is bread baked on coals and a jar of water. He eats, he drinks, and he lies back down. And then the angel comes back a second time, touches him again, and says, arise and eat. The journey is too great for you. Not you are weak. Not you should be further along. Not I am disappointed in you. But I see what you are carrying. I see the distance ahead. And I know your body needs something real before you can take another step. God's first response to Elijah's suicidal exhaustion was not theology. It was not discipline. It was not a motivational speech. It was sleep, food, water, touch, rest. The God of the universe, the one who just sent fire from heaven, looked at his broken prophet under a tree and said, you need to eat something and sleep before anything else, before the next assignment, before the conversation about what comes next. Basic human needs first. That is something far more intimate, far more human, far more safe. I want to speak to the person who has been going and going and going, who has been strong for everyone else, who has been the one who holds it together, shows up, delivers, performs, produces, and has been doing it so long that they genuinely cannot remember the last time someone asked if they were okay and actually waited for the real answer. I want to speak to the person who achieved the thing, got the degree, built the business, raised the children, survived the season, finished the project, and then sat at the aftermath feeling more lost, and more empty than they did before any of it started. That feeling is not ingratitude. It is not spiritual failure. It is not evidence that something is permanently broken inside you. It is what happens when a human being gives more than they had, when the reserve was empty long enough to finish line and your body kept going on something it shouldn't have had to run. And I want to say something that might feel almost too simple, given how heavy this is. You are allowed to stop. Not forever, not in surrender, but today. You are allowed to lie down under the tree. You are allowed to say it is enough. I have nothing left. You are allowed to sleep, to eat something real, to drink water, to let your body be a body for a moment instead of a machine. Because the angel didn't tell Elijah to push through. The angel told him to rest and then rest again. Because the journey ahead required him to be whole, not just functional. You cannot pour from empty. And God apparently already knew that. Elijah's story doesn't end under that tree. After the rest, after the food, after the care, God speaks to him again. Not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, in a still small voice. After all the noise and the miracle and the running and the collapse, God's voice came in the quiet. The kind of quiet you can only hear when you've stopped running. If you are burned out today, if you are empty in ways you haven't been able to name out loud, I want you to hear this. The next thing is not the next achievement. The next thing is not pushing harder or praying louder or performing better. The next thing might just be rest. Real, unapologetic, necessary rest. The kind that feels almost irresponsible given everything on your plate. The kind the angel insisted on twice before he asked anything else from Elijah. And if you are in the place where Elijah was, where it felt like too much, where the thought of continuing feels genuinely impossible, where something in you has whispered that it would be easier if it just stopped, please tell someone, a person who is safe, a counselor, a doctor, a trusted friend, not because you are broken beyond repair, but because you are a human being who has carried something too heavy for too long. And you deserve the kind of care the angel gave Elijah. Tangible, present, gentle, real. The journey ahead may still be great, but you don't have to take it depleted. Rest first. Eat, drink, sleep. Let yourself be cared for. The still small voice will be there when you are ready to hear it. And so will you. If this episode reached you, if Elijah's tree felt familiar, share it with someone who needs permission to stop. Sometimes the most important thing we can do for someone is hand them something that says, what you are feeling has a name, and you are not alone in it. And if you are struggling with burnout, emotional exhaustion, or thoughts of not wanting to go on, please reach out to someone today. You matter beyond what you produce and beyond what you achieve. Next time, we go into one of the most misunderstood stories in the Bible, the story of Job. Not the version where we skip the ending and say, God restores everything. The version that sits in the middle, in the silence, in the three friends who got it completely wrong. We are going to talk about what it means to grieve something you cannot explain and cannot fix. Thank you for being part of Hannah's World. See you next week.